Welcome back. Each year, the Program Excellence Evaluation Team selects a couple of topics for deep dives. These are issues that transcend any company's doors or anybody's badge, and in which almost every program or project leader has a keen interest. This year, one of those topics has to do with digitalization and model-based engineering. As we've heard in the previous session, these tools have become unbelievably important as the industry has dealt with the COVID pandemic. I'm going to turn this over to our moderator, Barry Chapman, Vice President for Aerospace, Defense, Federal, and Marine at Siemens Digital Industries Software. Barry, over to you.
Thanks, Carol. Hey, hi, everybody. I'm excited to moderate this panel. We have two of the most innovative thought leaders around digital strategies in the A&D industry. Joining us today is Jeff Reed, who's the Director of Engineering, Strategy, Integration, and Operations from Northrop Grumman Aeronautics Systems. And we also have Tim Schweitzer, who's the Director of Business Transformation and Digital Shipbuilding in Newport News Shipbuilding. Both have successfully deployed some digital strategies that are really transforming their business. And these model-based processes are transforming the whole defense industry, as we just heard, and whether it's the Air Force or whether it's the Navy, it doesn't make a difference. Throughout all of DoD, digital is transforming the DoD and the industry. So let me just start out, and let me hand off to Tim and Jeff. They could provide a little bit of background on themselves and their projects they're working on. So Jeff, you want to start out?
Yes, thank you, Barry, and thanks all for having us today. Good morning. For me in particular, the majority of my career has been really working on aerospace and defense projects. I started out as a structural design, structural analysis, using many of the tools that we're creating and developing today, CAD, PLM, now PLM, but wasn't called PLM back in the early days, and leading teams, but really had the opportunity to understand and see the impact that we had in the design world to our manufacturing brethren through MRB, et cetera. So I gained a pretty good understanding early in my career of the challenges of design changes and complexity within the manufacturing world. And we're beginning to see with the new technology that comes out how we can make that transition a little bit easier by gaining influence of manufacturing into the design tools. So I began to see early on programs how some of this new technology could really benefit not just the silos of capabilities that we have, but benefit the programs as a whole. And again, begin bringing the collective teams and functions together to come up with a better solution.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's great. What you and Northrop Grumman have done on their digital strategies is outstanding. So, hey, Tim, you want to take a couple minutes and give a little background on yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Barry, and it's a privilege to be on this panel. So thanks for including me. I've been at the shipyard for 18 years. Actually before that, I was an aerospace guy. I'm an aerospace engineer by trade and worked for Naval Air Systems Command. Went to grad school and really took an interest in operations and operations management and operational efficiency, and came down to the shipyard. And I've been through engineering, quality, supply chain, material planning, manufacturing, and always kind of gravitated towards special projects, and got assigned to this the biggest special project I've been part of, which is now what we call integrated digital shipbuilding, several years back. And for us, it was really about bringing the power of digital information to our deck plate shipbuilders, our manufacturing and construction folks, of which we have over 10,000 of those on site at Newport News. Frankly, who have never really had direct access to computers and the digital information that we've had upstream in the build cycle. So traditionally, like a lot of manufacturing, but certainly in shipbuilding, we build a lot off of traditional 2D paper products and paper information. And that's as ships have gotten more complex and the standards have gotten higher, that's just become harder and harder for our workforce to be efficient in that kind of environment. We've been in a product model world for several decades, as you know, Barry. And we've had 3D product models for carriers and submarines, only to print out that information on paper for the half of the workforce that actually has to get their hands dirty building the ship. So So the real spirit of IDS is creating that digital thread from design all the way through manufacturing and ultimately through the full life cycle of the ships, with a heavy emphasis now on that manufacturing and production workforce we have at Newport News. Who we are now arming with mobile computers, with some real innovative products, digital products to help them build ships, including interactive 3D work instructions, step-by-step instructions, instead of kind of the traditional paper-based drawings that are been typical for shipbuilding, as we like to say, since Noah built the Ark. But also some innovative visual tools and scheduling analytics-based tools for managing complex construction, which is really the heart of what we do in shipbuilding. Some of which is based on, for those of you that are familiar with the term, critical chain project management instead of critical path. So we're kind of weaving together something that we think is really innovative in leading the shipbuilding industry in digital, and really building a lot off of what we've seen in aerospace and automotive and other industries. Thanks.
Oh, thanks, Tim. Yeah, I can only imagine what kind of Ark Noah could build if he had digital tools back then, right? Hey, let's talk about why. So these projects require, commitments from the company due to the investment, due to the people, the funding, and the culture change. I want to understand from both of you really the why. What was the compelling reason to take up projects like this? And Tim, maybe why don't you start out? Give us the why. What was the compelling reason for the integrated digital shipyard?
Yeah. So the why really goes back to, and the roots of this project started earlier in the decade. As we typically do self-assessments of what's working and where we have opportunities to improve, and we cast a wide net. And we got tons of feedback from our deck plate shipbuilders that the information we give them is just too complex. We're asking them to be more efficient, and we're not setting them up for success with the information we're giving them. So we set out to provide better information and just provide better tools for our shipbuilders to be successful. And as we looked at different ways to do that, some of which weren't digital, just can we give them better paper products? We caught on to the power of digital to really provide information in a more accessible, more readable, more user-friendly way. So we kind of, this was kind of a deck plate or shop floor focus first back into digital. And the why for us is still setting up our shipbuilders to be successful. It's all for them on the deck plate for us. Did I lose him?
Looks like Barry froze.
Okay, that's Barry that froze. Okay. Jeff, you're still live?
Yes, I am.
Hope it wasn't something I said.
No. That looks like Barry dropped.
I don't know.
Yes,
It looks
she's
like
here. Hey. So Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about the business case that you all made in terms of investing in this technology?
Yeah, certainly. Much like Tim described, I mean, we're seeing the new technology coming out over the last several years, and we've been doing the same thing. We're really beginning to exploit this capability. At Northrop Grumman, we've been developing engineering using models and digital engineering of some sort for the past, for decades. We've always done that. We've taken today's technology now, which enables the ability to begin to integrate, reuse these models, and for lack of a better term, begin to establish our digital thread. So once we can start integrating the models that we're using between not only design disciplines within engineering, but the functions that utilize the tools, we begin to really pull out that value, right? The reuse. So this helps us with not only consistency, requirements traceability, validating that we're meeting the requirements through models versus physical assets, developing that single source of truth. How am I meeting my requirements? And it really begins to set the stage for, another term in industry today is the digital twin. So all of this technology, the digital thread, this single source of truth, integrating models, being able to integrate the models, integrate the designs, get input from design throughout the product lifecycle is really what we're trying to do. And it's by doing all of this, we're beginning to see and enable first-time quality, the first-time quality of our product. So if you think about getting the input from the stakeholders, downstream that are going to be living with the designs that we're putting together, upstream from the requirements as they're establishing. How does that affect cost? How does that affect complexity in build? How does that affect lead time in the material that's necessary? All of these things drive program cost, drive program schedule. So being able to utilize this technology has been very, very helpful for us. The ability to simulate the engineering and manufacturing on the factory floor for the assembly layout before we provide the initial engineering is where we're really beginning to take this. And I think that's where we're starting to see some of the initial benefit, or the path that we're going to get that benefit.
So let's talk a little bit about the value. So you mentioned about the value of model-based engineering. It can be tremendous. And you mentioned, Jeff, like first-time quality and meeting program timelines. But they also get value from pursuing new business. Like, so what kind of results are you seeing from digital programs like model-based engineering from a value side, Jeff?
Oh yeah, and I mean, just as I mentioned, first-time quality increases our competitiveness for the new pursuits. I talked about getting some downstream consumers input early on, and at Northrop we have extremely complex products like Tim. Ours is aircraft, so very complex products. And if you think about the design iterations that we go through, not only internally, but we have design partners, suppliers that are deeply integrated with our internal Northrop resources, engineers that are developing the products. So the model-based engineering capabilities, digital engineering has really taken collaboration to a new level. So just as I described, getting downstream input from our manufacturing or global supply chain on building up our, or as we build up our engineering designs or mature our engineering designs, we do the same thing with our design partners. So as a partner or a supplier is designing components, parts of the aircraft that are going to need to merge together, rather than paper interface control documents, we use interface control models. We get real-time input, and all of this puts us on a better stage to provide a more affordable product, which provides overall program affordability, competitiveness as we streamline our business processes to align to this digital environment that we're developing.
Oh, that's great, Jeff. Thanks. Yeah, and when you talk about integrated digital shipbuilding, Tim, I think Newport News has done a great job. There's some great videos out there that show the value of what IDS has brought, Newport News, plus what it's brought the Navy. But you want to kind of expand on that? What are your perspective on the value that digital has brought Newport News?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with what we set out to achieve, which is for IDS, we built savings into our 2-ship carrier contract for our next 2 Ford-class aircraft carriers. And we, based on some of the early pilots that we did, we signed up for over 5 million man hours of savings over those 2 ships, which equates to somewhere between 5 and 10% of the production bill, depending on kind of how you do your math. And we did that with very limited pilots. We're still kind of early in the build, but the kind of the early indicators that we're getting are showing that we are on track. So we're taking cost out. We're helping our shipbuilders, and it's really about if you think about different crafts in shipbuilding, like welding or fitting. We're not trying to get shipbuilders to weld faster or to fit faster. We're trying to take things off their plate that keep them from applying their craft every hour of every day. And we seem to be doing that. So that's a good indication. But behind that, one of the things we found that we didn't see early on is what we call time to talent. And our production workforce, 40 to 45% of them have been in shipbuilding, in the shipyard, and in the industry for less than 3 years. And what we find is with the complex environment we have, and especially with the drawings and technical manuals we have, it takes typically 5 to 6 years to become proficient at your job in that kind of environment. And with the digital tools we're now providing, we're finding them get up to that proficiency level in 6 to 12 months often. It's hard to measure, but that's kind of a repeated finding that we've had. And so apply that across the thousands of shipbuilders that are new. And I think that's actually the biggest benefit that we are absolutely seeing out of this. The other benefit that we're seeing is really in employee engagement and retention, and attracting them to the shipyard. We've had yeah, we've had folks see what we're doing and say, I've never been interested in coming to work in a shipbuilding industry. It wasn't something I was attracted to, but now that I see what you're doing, yeah, we'd like to come and work with you. So you kind of get those side benefits that we didn't see before that we're now seeing.
Well, that's a great point. Yeah, and the employee benefit side of things is tremendous, especially in extracting talent. Hey, when you implement these programs, there always seems to be this uncovering of a surprise because we're doing something brand new. In essence, we're creating new processes. We don't just, as they say, pave the cow path, right? We're creating new paths to do work. But when we do that, we always uncover some surprises, right? There's always something that you didn't think of, some unknowns. Jeff, maybe from your perspective, can you share with us some of the surprises maybe that you uncovered while implementing your model-based engineering practices?
Yeah, sure. Where to start? I mean, as you think about how we're changing the culture, we're really changing the way we do business, and the tools are enabling that. I mean, due to the nature of our products, we often work in classified environments. This is a recent example we came up with, and so of course security is a top priority. Well, if you think about how engineers design aerospace and defense products, we design in context, meaning we use aircraft coordinates. We lay out design components, structure, subsystems, all the way down to individual brackets that build up the product. And if this product is classified in nature, if you think about that, that's built into an aircraft coordinate system. With paper drawings, it's pretty easy to take that the componentry and eliminate enough information where suppliers or unclassified fabrication facilities could build something and not know what it's for, whether it's for a classified aircraft or something completely different. So as we go in and begin to develop these 3D technical data packages that have embedded product manufacturing information and are laid out in an aircraft coordinate system, one of the things we realized is I can't just cut the component and the information out of the drawing. I've got to be able to cleanse my model in order to bring it out of aircraft geometries, bring it down to 000, be able to hand it to an unclassified fabrication shop so that they can build the parts. But I still need to be sure that all my product manufacturing information is intact, and that we can validate that the design and inspect that the design intent is still valid. Has anything moved as we've prepped it for cleansing? It sounds simple, but if you think about the engineering labor that became involved associated with this to be sure that we cleanse the component of any pertinent data that could give any indication of what the product, of what the part is being used for, it became quite a complex situation. So one of the things we did, again, we didn't plan for it. We didn't think about, okay, what are we going to do to go and get through this? We kind of got caught with, hey, this is an issue that's causing us a little bit more time. So what did we do about it? We quickly, fortunately, were able to come up with some solutions. We've got quite a group of innovative and creative engineers, and they were able to automate processes and validation and automate checking to ensure that we didn't run into any security problems. So it was a challenge that we had, but then a quick accomplishment, I'll say, to overcome that challenge. And we see these types of examples constantly as we move from 2D to 3D based. It is changing the way we do business, and thinking about downstream consumers is always a challenge. So that's just a recent example.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah. Now, when I think about shipbuilding, Tim, what surprises you have, because you have culture surprises, you have technology, the massiveness of the design of the ship. How about you, from your perspective? What surprises did you guys uncover?
Yeah, I'll share a couple, kind of a positive and a lesson learned. From the positive side, you mentioned culture. I'll tell you, our pretense coming in, our thought process is that as we unroll digital to our production workforce, that we like many in A&D had kind of a dual hump, kind of camel-shaped demographic workforce with a kind of a lot in the kind of the younger generation and a lot more 5 to 10 years within range of retirement. And we thought that that older workforce would resist. They're used to legacy processes that we've had for many years. And we just kind of assumed that we would need the younger workforce to kind of lead the way. I'll tell you what we found is we have not found the pushback or the resistance at all from that the more experienced workforce that has been here. What we find is, since we're doing it for them, that giving our workforce better tools to do their jobs, giving them something that's intuitive. It's almost hard to find a person that wants to go back to our legacy processes. So I think kind of the assumptions that we made and the stories we told ourselves about the resistance to change of the deck plate actually turned out to be much lower than we thought. So that's been a positive surprise for us. I don't know if I'd call it a surprise, but certainly a learning anyway is. We talk about implementing, we call it digital. So much of it is people and process as well. So we talk about people, process, and tools. As the project has grown and more people come in, what you find is that people like to gravitate toward the tool part of this first, and they get excited by the technology. They get excited kind of by the whiz bang features that are now available. And as you're scaling up to much bigger numbers, kind of from pilot mode, you find again and again how important getting the process straight is important, and really working on the workforce is important. So our biggest challenges now are scaling up the workforce that's working in the new digital environment. And I'm not talking about our deck plate people. I'm talking about kind of throughout engineering and planning that are now working more model based, and getting them to do that in a really efficient manner. But also those upstream processes to go model based. It's easy for people, I think, to kind of try to lay these new digital tools over legacy processes throughout design and planning, and that just you miss a lot of opportunity that way. And so I think we're recovering some from that now and trying to go back and do more process and workforce development work that we could, in retrospect, have emphasized a little heavier on the front end.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Thanks, Tim. Yeah. Considering this conference is really about, you mentioned best practices and learning. This conference is about that. It's about sharing ideas, getting ideas, sharing them, trying to adapt. And when I think about both your projects, both of them are tremendous. Can you maybe, Tim, share like the lessons learned that you have and share with the kind of audience, or what would you do differently if you had to do it all over again on a digital program like yours?
Well, I think from what I would do differently, I think I just really started with that answer there. I would have been, and I'll elaborate on that more. I would focus more on the process element of this upfront. We are increasingly bringing more system engineering kind of talent in to think about, hey, how do we scale up the production of both model files and work instructions that is not based on a drawing-based kind of legacy process of the past, and we're through the whole value stream of creating models, creating drawings, creating work instructions for our deck plate, configuration, managing all of that, certifying a ship to all of that. It's tremendously complex, and we're investing in that in a way now that we didn't upfront as much as we could have. So if I could go back 2 or 3 years, I would have invested in I think a much stronger, more robust kind of cross value stream process effort to make sure we had all that figured out as much as we could. Now we do a lot of what we call learn by doing, and we did that in pilot mode to kind of figure out what works and what doesn't. That I thought was a best practice. And to really kind of test things out before you scale up. But there are some things that we missed that way. I think another best practice that we've had that has served us well, and again, in retrospect, I would have done more of this even upfront. But Barry and I know you and many of the Siemens folks have been through our digital trailer. We invested early on in like 3 years ago in a 1,000 square foot trailer, the same kind that NASCAR teams use to bring their cars around the world, to really engage our workforce and our customers and other stakeholders in what we're doing, and in a kind of an interactive, meaningful way, instead of just kind of telling people what we're doing. And we've had now 30,000 people. Some shipbuilders, some Navy customers. We've brought it to the Navy Yard. We've brought it to Capitol Hill. So we've had government stakeholders in there, and just driving a conversation and much better way than I think we normally would have. And investing in that kind of communications effort and that kind of outreach effort, I think has served us well. So that's one that I would put forth as a best practice.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely wonderful, and being able to take it to the shipyards or take it to Congress and be able to let people to see and touch and feel and see the understanding and let them understand the value of a digital program like you guys have is tremendous. Hey, Jeff, how about you? How about the best practices from your side? Can you share some ideas on that?
Yeah, I think I resonate with much of what Tim said. Learn by doing is exactly how we've introduced a lot of the capabilities that we have been on programs. And learn by doing meaning almost being reactive on, okay, here's the problem of the day, we've got to go resolve that. So getting ahead, and the other thing Tim touched on that resonates with me as well is processes. Thinking about the processes and how they're changing now for creating engineering, thinking about downstream consumers is different than how we operated previously. So really getting ahead, and we're doing this now. We're putting a lot of investment in taking the lessons we've learned from the multiple programs that we've rolled out digital engineering capabilities on, and we're applying it to new programs. And proposals are fast and furious. Project or program managers are beginning to see digital engineering as a requirement. So, our inclination is to do what we did before, and we've got to change that. So we're putting processes in place to be thinking more and more about the digital engineering, to think about the tools that we select, that we begin using early on, if they're going to impact something that we need to do later on. So really taking a look at our internal processes. We've established internal websites now where we maintain many of the best practices that were picked up, that were learned, that we've established by moving more and more toward model-based. We're developing YouTube-like videos, if you will, for problem areas that that engineers may have some challenges with, and we know that the next program is going to see the same thing. So we've collected that and created targeted training that's going to support new programs as they move in. But I think the biggest lessons learned is really ensuring that we can adapt our processes to support, adapt and change and update our processes that we can support a digital engineering program, which, as I said, is not just becoming a desirement of new programs for affordability, which we see, but it's becoming a requirement. So it's no longer a choice, and we've got to really think about how we support that best.
Oh, that's a great point, Jeff. Yeah, I think through the years, just working with Newport News and Northrop Grumman and their digital thread processes using Teamcenter, I see like the adaptation, right? I see how you guys have adapted over the years and build these best practices back into the next generation, the next version of a digital thread, as you guys have done that, which is really remarkable. Hey, well, why don't we hear from the audience now? Maybe I can introduce Carol back in. Carol, are there any questions, or what are people asking from the audience?
Well, so I obviously have one. I'd like to turn to Tim. You mentioned the decline in hours required, weeks, months, years required to bring somebody up to speed to 6 to 12 months. Has that improved your voluntary attrition data? Are people choosing to stay more than they had in the past?
Yeah, it's hard to, I can't say we have hard data that pinpoints that. We absolutely believe that to be true, based on some of the subjective feedback we get from the workforce. One of the things we do track is engagement, workforce engagement, and actually we're just now getting our latest annual survey results back on that. And the indications we've had is that those folks that are we're bringing into the digital world faster are more engaged, and just feel better about the company and where we're heading based on what we're doing. That's both on the production side and kind of the upstream side. So we do believe it helps us with attrition. I can't tell you we have hard data on that yet.
One of the things that we've heard from companies like the entire industry is that attracting young people in to work on assembly or hard metal projects is that we're not tech savvy enough. Does it help in recruiting as well?
Yeah, so I mentioned the digital trailer earlier, and so I mentioned we bring it around the shipyard and to our customers. We also bring it on recruiting visits, and we have this one great experience we had. We took it to a STEM conference out in the Midwest, and with a team of folks that just engage people in what we're doing. And we had one young engineer, bright engineer, come up to actually my boss, who's now the CIO, and said, I never thought I would be interested in applying to a shipyard, right? Just a kind of a traditional, kind of old school type of business. And he said, but now that I see what you're doing, here's my resume, please. I'd love to come and work with you. We've got other, so that one really stuck with us. But we have other stories like that as well, and it's changing I think people's image of us as a company and of the industry as a whole.
Back to you, Barry.
Hey, well, I appreciate the time for everybody. I think it's been a fantastic session. I think when we take a look at the two companies, between what Northrop Grumman is doing, what Newport News is doing, you truly are the leaders in digital strategies. And if you listen to Secretary Kurtz, or you listen to Dr. Roper, and what the DoD is requiring industry to come together to really solve the challenges the DoD is facing, both of you and your companies that you represent, and along with partners like ourselves, are adapting and having that vision come to reality. So I appreciate the time.
Great, and thank you so much to this entire panel, Jeff, Tim, and Barry. And we can see that the shift is really on in the industry, and not only does it make things better in terms of collaborating with one another, but it also makes a huge difference in terms of recruiting the next generation of workers. So thank you so much for your input.